Hello everyone, welcome back to DiabloCast, your Diablo 3 podcast. Here we keep you up to date on all things Diablo 3 related and share with you our thoughts and opinions. As always, I'm your host, Dennis Force Duhamel, and with me, as always, we've got Kevin Sixen Carlino.
What's going on, everybody?
And our buddy PhrozenDragon is making a return. How you doing today, Frozen?
Hey, just fine.
Very good, very good. Nice to have you back on board. Last time we had you, we talked about a whole bunch of lore. I don't think we'll be doing that this time unless you sneak something in there, but
I'll see what I can do.
Sure, absolutely. I'm sure any lore fans out there would appreciate it. So this podcast, we're going to be specifically focusing on Gamescom, which is actually still taking place right now. All of the major announcements did happen earlier in the week. We're going to look at what we're looking at for the Diablo 3 beta start date, which will be sometime soon. Also, the major announcement of Inferno Difficulty in Diablo 3. We'll be talking about the armor sets and their progression in the game, and also some mention of some artwork and the Blizzard writing contest. So with that said, let's jump right into that first topic, which is going to be the beta start date. All right, we don't have an actual date. I kind of that was a big lie right there. It's not a set date in stone, but we're getting closer and closer to that day. And it was actually stated by Jay Wilson that they're planning early September, and he did say possibly earlier than early September, but that was later amended by Bashiok. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yeah. Basically, Bashiok went and said it's beta in August is very unlikely, or highly unlikely, whatever he said, but that we should definitely expect it in September.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as I'm concerned right now, I'm thinking within the first 2 weeks of September seems very probable. So the beta is right around the corner. I mean, we're getting there.
We're getting there, I guess.
Yeah. it's been a slow drag, but we're finally getting there.
I think somebody in the forum made a thread saying feels like we're almost there, and I replied saying, yeah, it felt like we were almost there in 2008. So.
It's too funny. But yeah, I mean, as far as it's looking right now, they're living up to the word, their planned start date in the third quarter. Even if it's pushed in the later half of that, it's better late than never. I guess that's always the case with
they still met their I don't want to call it a deadline, but they still hit the date that they said that they were going to. So
yeah, absolutely. So pretty cool stuff. Very, very soon we can be expecting the beta, and God knows there's going to be lots of content, so any Diablo fans certainly should be jumping for joy at the fact that we are getting very, very close right now. All right, so not much to say about that, so we're actually just going to go ahead and jump right on to the major topic of this week. We'll be discussing Inferno Difficulty. It was recently announced that there will be a fourth difficulty in Diablo 3 that is named Inferno. So we've got Normal, Nightmare, Hell, and then the final will be Inferno. Key notes is, in Normal, Nightmare, and Hell, there's going to be a progressive increase in difficulty of the monsters as you progress through all of the acts. The major difference with Inferno here is going to be what's known as a flat difficulty, and it's going to be more or less the same difficulty from the first to the last act in Inferno mode. And it's basically the plan behind this is to give us some sort of, I'm going to use this word tentatively so Kevin doesn't get too bothered, but some sort of some sort of end game. The idea with this is that in Diablo 2, our late game play was farming one or two specific bosses, but with a flat difficulty and with what appears to be kind of evenly distributed percent chance to drop loot. I think that's the plan right now. We'll have incentive to actually play throughout all of the acts and not have to focus on one specific area. So there's obviously a lot to talk about with this, and that there's certainly going to be a lot of debate. We're also going to be talking about the armor progression here in the game and the visuals of that, but specifically let's start off focusing on the Inferno difficulty. Well, actually, I want to start with you, Frozen. How do you feel about this difficulty mode? Do you think it's a good addition? Are you happy with it?
I was actually quite happy when they announced it. I figured it was like an extended Hell version, but instead of just running around in Act 5 or Act 4 in this case, you could get all the 4 acts and have access to them at the highest level. So basically, I mean, they give us all the previous 3 acts and kind of raise them, so they're also an option to go to. And it just seems like a pretty easy way to extend the lifetime of all this design work they put into those acts.
Yeah, and I know that there was some concern. I've seen various questions, people wondering, does this mean they're just spreading what was 3 difficulties amongst 4? As I mentioned at the start, that is not the case, because in the prior game, it was the case that there was that progressive increase in difficulty. But again, this fourth one will be completely separate from that. It'll be, and in fact, the way it's looking to be is, the character max level is 60, and the opponents, the monsters we're going to be coming up against in Inferno mode will be level 61. I believe that was stated. That's the max level. I think they initially said that was the minimum level, but then people were saying it's the max. Yeah.
Yeah, because on the slideshow it said level 61 or something, and Jay Wilson said that they would be at least level 61. But I'm pretty sure that everything is going to be level 61, because otherwise, if it wasn't, then it would be scaling upward, which is what they said that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's like normal monsters are 61 and bosses are 64 or something. But I mean, I'm just guessing. Does it really matter?
No, because the
I mean, the monsters will be more powerful than you in any case.
Yeah, but the point is that they want to allow you to run, or essentially farm the entire game, not just choosing one or two bosses or whatever. That was the reasoning for not making the game scale upwards, so that way you could just farm the entire game instead of farming the last boss or two.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like maybe every act boss is level 64 and all the monsters are 61. That way, it would still be like even across the difficulties, but bosses would be harder. I mean, it seems like it's 61 for all the monsters, but
I think that the final consensus was that it was a maximum 61 and not a minimum, because I saw in more places maximum, and I think the minimum was a fluke. I don't recall if Bashaw commented on that or not. It is possible, but either way, the plan is, the idea is that the enemies and the monsters in this difficulty will be always above your level. And again, with that flat difficulty, as Kevin said, it gives us a reason to be able to play throughout all acts without just focusing on and kind of tunnel visioning on a certain area. Now, Kevin, just your thoughts and opinions about the addition of the Inferno difficulty mode, because I know you had a word or two to say about it, and it's been referenced as being the Diablo endgame, and I understand you have some conflicts with that.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think having the Inferno difficulty is a cool idea. It means that essentially I can play whatever part of the game to find whatever items I need, instead of being forced into running two particular bosses, which is, I mean, I guess it's pretty cool.
It's certainly a step up from what we had prior,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because it was going to happen in hell. We're all going to get stuck farming the same bosses. So now, because of this, we can farm whatever it is that we want. Maybe something we find more fun or easier for us to do as whatever type of character class or our build. I just disagree with it being called endgame. Essentially, it really isn't an end game. I mean, I'm going to buy Diablo 3. I'm going to play the game, and if I'm one of those completionists, I'm going to play normal, nightmare, hell, and now Inferno, and then I'm going to complete Inferno, and then what is there to do now? Nothing. I'm going to put the game down, and I'm going to be done. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, but for the average user, I mean, once I complete Inferno, what am I going to do? I'm going to make a new character, and I'm going to do it again. I mean, there's once you complete Inferno, there's no more content. And I look at Endgame as it's unique content. So, for example, World of Warcraft, once you complete all the quests and do all the content for your level, boom, now you can start raiding once you hit max level, and there's extra content and stuff for you to do.
And just to put this, I guess, in simplified terms for the listeners or viewers or whatever we're going to call them, for people who are hearing this podcast, essentially what Kevin is saying is that all of the content that we see as we're leveling up, endgame should be something that we haven't seen up until that point. That's basically what you're looking for, Kevin. And the fact that Inferno mode is just those same 4 acts, just more difficult,
right?
means that you don't want to coin it endgame.
Exactly, it's just another difficulty. So, I mean, if we didn't have hell, or sorry, if we didn't have Inferno to begin with, would hell just be the endgame? I don't think so. I think that would be silly. So, I mean, would you? I don't consider Diablo 1 hell difficulty to be the endgame in Diablo 1. I consider there to be no endgame in Diablo 1. Same with Diablo 2, which is why Blizzard added the Pandemonium events, because people complained that there was no endgame. I mean, we really didn't start calling or worrying about endgame stuff until World of Warcraft came out. And at that point, people said, hey, we need something in Diablo 2. And Blizzard realized, hey, we need something in Diablo 2. So they added a patch for the Pandemonium events, which is Diablo Clone and Uber Tristram.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the point you're trying to make here is that farming items isn't really end game. I mean, we need to be able to use the items for something. There needs to be some sort of goal. In Diablo 2's case and WoW's case, that's powerful bosses.
Mm.
And unless Diablo 3 has that kind of content, unless you find gear farming in itself, gratifying enough, there's just no real point in you as a player to participate in that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the whole thing. That's the entire draw, is that what's coined typically in games as end game is something that you work to. It's always about acquiring more gear in these RPGs. We're looking to get more gear, but as Frozen just said, it's a matter of that leading to something else. Whereas the new difficulty doesn't lead to anything else; it just leads to grinding more gear. So I definitely agree with that. I mean, maybe there's still stuff that are going to get patched in, and I think in prior discussions, Kevin, you had mentioned it's likely to just be the fact that since we won't start out playing Inferno, it's going to take some time for us, the player base, to get their characters up there. Then maybe the end game will be patched in later post-release, 6 months or something after.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the blue posts that Bashok made said that yes, I mean, we're planning on having extra content still, but as far as release goes, it's just Inferno.
Yeah. So I mean, so there you go. And I guess, I mean, technically speaking, the end of the game, what we're doing at the very last stages of the game, that will be Inferno mode to start. But then hopefully more things get added in, and again, that's their plan as far as we know. So.
Well,
Yes.
right, and I mean, as far as this goes, I've seen some people say that, well, I mean, it's we can call it end game just because it's being tailored to the end game. They aren't raising the difficulty throughout the difficulty. The difficulty of the monsters won't be scaling upward as you progress through Inferno.
Yeah.
And I mean, my response to that is, well, they make the entire game the same. Basically, they make the entire game wherever you are within the game. They scale that with your character's levels. So in normal, in nightmare, and hell, and every single act, every single part of the act, they make sure that they're scaling the monsters with about what your level should be on average.
Mm-hmm.
Now, once we hit Inferno, it just so happens that we can't level up anymore. So they make the entire difficulty scale with your level. Just because, I mean, yes, it's one level, but I mean, they're still scaling it with your level. So, I mean, the concept behind Inferno is still the same concept behind Normal, Nightmare, and Hell. So, in my opinion, all I did was toss on another difficulty. And again, like I said before, if I'm a completionist, if there was no Inferno, I'm playing Normal, Nightmare, and Hell just so I could beat Normal, Nightmare, and Hell. I mean, now that they add another difficulty, cool. Now I just have to beat one more difficulty, and then I'm done. I mean, that's just how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's still going to be about the item hunt. That's going to be the main draw, and obviously we have that great addition of PvP, as unsupported as it may be from the get-go. Hopefully maybe later down the road this will be a little bit more of a focus, but it's always going to be about the item hunt, and I think that is the biggest draw. But again, hopefully they add new content unseen before through our normal playthrough of the game later down the road, like the Ubers or anything like that. I mean, that would be great, and I expect that to happen. I really don't see how that couldn't happen. And
I don't see why they wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone wants some sort of Uber monster at the end, don't they? I mean, I figured they would.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, and that's kind of why I don't feel like the Inferno is endgame, just because, I mean, like Dennis said, the whole part of the game is the item hunt, and I don't see how we can call farming endgame. I mean, farming for items is the entire concept behind Diablo. The entire point of Diablo is to gear and make your character better. So I mean, there's nothing really special about it. I mean, yeah, I guess it's what you do after you beat the game, but I mean, it's not really end game.
But does it
Because I
have?
mean, you could do it in normal if you wanted to. There's nothing special about it. Distinct.
Does it have to be special? I mean, if we acknowledge that the whole point of the game is the farming aspect, or the central core idea is the farming aspect, then it makes sense that the last, the final things, the most difficult things you do are also related to farming, because, I mean, that's the game, so you should expand on that idea, I feel like. So I mean, the bosses, I mean, I think if they add bosses, it's still kind of an add-on thing. Like, you add achievements to Diablo, so the achievement completionists like myself will have something to it's pointless things to do, like getting all 5 hardcore characters through Inferno or something. man,
Yeah.
that's going to cause pain. But
or like killing 100 fallen in 5 seconds
Yeah.
in Inferno or something like that.
I mean, that also institutes some sort of arbitrary thing, and then in order to do those, I mean, you farm. Maybe you'll have to farm a lot of stuff to get those achievements. And the same thing when you get these super bosses, you have to farm a lot of stuff to get them. But the farming thing is still kind of, the end game, and the bosses are just kind of a justification to rationalize the farming in your mind.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Well, I mean, and that makes sense, and it seems and that's a pretty logical or a pretty reasonable request that no matter what, we're always grinding something to get more gear to get to something else, be it achievements or a new boss or an Ubers. But having fresh content, I think, is what Kevin is really looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that's reasonable. And especially, I mean, we've talked so much over the past few weeks about the Real Money Auction House and how it is going to be, with the transaction fees, the way that Blizzard will be pulling in some consistent income. And with that, hopefully, this is going to allow them to use those funds to reinvest into the game and to add more content throughout the course of the game. And I think one big thing, too, to know, we might be kind of brushing it aside, but I'm really hoping that Inferno is incredibly difficult to get through. Like that in and of itself is a reason to be able to focus on it. And maybe we'll end up having to grind gear for a little while in Hell before we even consider going to Inferno. Maybe it'll be that nuts, Maybe the second you leave town, a zombie stares at you and you crumble to ashes. I mean, we don't know. We really don't know how difficult it's going to be, given the fact that the monster cap is going to be above our player cap. I don't think we can just fresh 60 expect to clear Inferno. I think it will take quite a bit of time. And again, that's fingers crossed. That's what I'm hoping for.
Let's hope so, yeah.
Because that will add a more longevity to it, at least for our first character in our first playthrough. And then, God, we haven't even forayed into the world of hardcore. That's going to be a feat in and of itself, and that's something I'm looking forward to. I'm certainly looking forward to rising into the challenge. My entire playthrough of the game isn't going to be on hardcore, but I will most certainly make a hardcore character, and I definitely want him to beat Inferno all the way through to the end. So
you get some softcore practice first, and then
yeah, well, I mean, and being able to play with your friends. I feel like a majority of people will be playing softcore, at least through the initial go through, and then work your way into hardcore. And I mean, you can play straight from hardcore off the bat, but God, if you die, it's so bad. You've got nothing to go back to, but straight up leveling. So it's pretty funny, but it's interesting, and again, I think that we are under the consensus that. I don't see how Blizzard wouldn't add additional content like Ubers and hopefully other stuff. There's been tips here and there, hints and tips here and there that they have lots still planned. They had lots of different ideas. I mean, even the PvP modes. We heard Jay Wilson talk about at the press event a few weeks back that they had tons of various ideas, including enemy monsters, something like a horde mode, a arena that includes demons inside of it, and all sorts of stuff. And maybe this is stuff that I expect to eventually get patched into the game. So yeah, pretty exciting. Anything else from either of you? Kevin, you got any more words for Inferno, or are you done with it?
I guess not. I guess I'll just be done with it for now.
Yeah.
Somebody can come and argue with me. I would love to.
I'm sure you won't have any problem finding people to argue.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the nature of it. All right, so still on the topic, but kind of a little aside from Inferno, is going to be what we will be getting from it. Now, what's the gain to it? Well, as we had just discussed, the item hunt is the main thing. That's what the game's all about. Inferno is looking to boast some pretty sweet gear. Visually, it's supposed to be completely distinct from anything available in normal through Hell. So that if you see Inferno gear, you know where it's from, and there you go. Same thing, I believe, with the weapons, and the high-end runestones are supposed to be from there as well. So some pretty awesome gear. Now, with that said, there's been a little bit of controversy surrounding the armor and the higher level armor, including late Hell and Inferno armor. People are saying it's a little too cartoony, it's a little too shiny. I'm feeling a little deja vu coming back to just the general Diablo 3 art style. It's probably the same people who complained about that. But do you guys? How about we start with you, Kevin? Do you have any opinions on the visuals behind the late tier items?
I thought that the monk in the Inferno armor looked sick. I thought he looked awesome.
I think someone said he looked like Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm not sure.
That's actually kind of funny.
That was the Demon Hunter though. The Demon Hunter was a little bit like that with the face mask.
I thought that they looked sick.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely much more elaborate, and I think I don't know if I want to use the word vibrant. I should just pick another word because vibrant would be offensive to most Diablo fans. But they're much more elaborate and they're much more noticeable. There's no question about that. But isn't that the intent? I mean, what are we looking for? Are we just looking for more spikes and skulls on every armor piece to signify later tier? I think that
that's not original.
I think it goes from basic. You start off as kind of a peasant looking with basic kind of cloth helm and chest piece, and then you go into these big elaborate like kind of flowing pieces with parts all over the place and swirling vortexes in the center of them. How about you, Frozen? How do you feel about the general art direction here?
Well, I have to say I admit with Kevin. I mean, I like it. I was pleasantly surprised because and a lot of people are probably going to hate me for this, but when I played WoW the first time, it kind of converted me to this whole, distinct
giant shoulder pads.
Giant shoulder pads, first and foremost, giant shoulder pads.
Yeah, you've had that in your signature, haven't you?
Yeah, forever. But yeah, it's giant shoulder pad and armor that just looks. I mean, it doesn't have to look realistic. It just has to look, imposing and cool and effectful. And I know a lot of people prefer the more realistic look we had in Diablo 2, which was. I mean, that was just about as realistic as you can get, other than the colors, other than pink and lime green. But the model design in the original games was a lot more realistic, and this is a clear break from that. And whether that's from WoW influence or some other reorganization within Blizzard or a new design goal or whatever, that's hard to say. But it's definitely a new design path, and I'm happy with it, and it seems like a lot of people are, but a lot of people aren't. And
I mean, I think in all honesty, if people are intending to remain Blizzard fans, we should throw the mentality of realistic graphics out the window, because that's not happening. Stylized is the direction that they're taking right now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but that's clearly the direction they're taking. I don't want to pin it exactly on this, but I think that started around Warcraft 3. I think they started to work towards a little more colorful, a little more stylized, and a little less towards the hardcore realistic graphics.
Keep in mind, they were working on Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft simultaneously.
Yeah, so, but I mean, if we take a look at the last few major releases, we'll start with Warcraft 3. It might have gone further back than that. I can't really think. StarCraft 2 wasn't really stylized like that. I wouldn't say it was super realistic either. It is a space alien kind of game, but
still pretty realistic. I mean, compared to later
compared to StarCraft 2, yeah. So we look at Warcraft 3, World of Warcraft, StarCraft 2, and now Diablo 3. They're taking a clear path, and people, if you don't like it, that's unfortunately the direction they're going. I don't think that they plan on changing their minds. And this isn't me being a Blizzard fanboy as much as you'd like to pin it on that. This is just, I'm making an observation. That is all I'm doing. I'm making a clear observation. We look at the past major titles, and that's what it's been. Stylized graphics, a little over-embellished, things a little out of proportion in terms of what things would realistically look like. And I think that from what I understand, the point behind this is to add longevity to the game. I think that at least in their eyes, in Blizzard's eyes, the more realistic you go, the less length of time games are likely to last or stay appealing to people.
I think
do you agree with that? Or
probably very true. I mean, because
makes sense.
The schism happened kind of after, between Diablo 2 and Warcraft 3, and I mean, Diablo 2 was kind of pseudo 3D. I don't know, it's isometric in some 3D elements. And then they had to go over to 3D. And if you look at early 3D games, I mean, they look like crap, most of them. If they go for the realistic look, it's horrible. And this is kind of a design decision that allows them to, things can look kind of funny and still look good because the game is supposed to look kind of funny-ish.
Yeah.
So it just gives them more leeway in designing, and it also, I guess, fits their design schedule because then they can take a lot of time designing things, and by the time it's out, people can't really complain that it's not top-end graphics because it's not intended to be that either.
I mean, that's not to say the games don't look good. I mean,
Absolutely not.
StarCraft 2 on Ultra looks phenomenal, and I don't know. Like, how could you say, oh, that doesn't look like a real Zealot? That doesn't look like a real mothership. But I mean, with that said, the stylized graphics can still look good, and I think they do. And that's not to take anything away from games who go for realistic. I've played Crysis, just amazing graphics in that game. Crysis and Crysis 2, I have both of those. We look at actually just very recently the Path of Exile beta. It's clear there's a clear distinction in art direction between Diablo 3 and Path of Exile. And Path of Exile, we could state that that's more realistic looking. It's meant to look a little more gritty. I like that too. I think that looks good as well. It's just, I guess, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
It's a different flavor,
Right. I mean, it just essentially is. I think it all depends on what game it is that you're playing, really.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it works for that specific genre or that game, or sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah. So, I mean, further complaints towards the later tier items and I guess the art style in general. Again, this is not fanboyism, just an observation. We go from Warcraft 3, we work our way up and look at everything that Blizzard has produced. It's more or less uniform in terms of the art direction, the type of style that it's going for. There's definitely distinctions between the universes. I think the biggest thing that they try to do is color palette. Between World of Warcraft, Diablo, and StarCraft, there's a different color palette that is used, but overall, it is the basic stylized type of. I'm not a graphics expert, so I could be wrong on that, but I think that's more or less it. So yeah, I guess that's it, right?
Before we move on, I figured I had to add this in. I mean, yeah, I guess I'm just throwing this out there, but we started this conversation off because you said that Inferno was going to be different because there's going to be Inferno specific gear, higher rune drops and basically better loot drops in Inferno. And again, I'm just throwing this out there. That's how all the other acts work, which makes Inferno just the same as anything else. In normal, you're going to find X specific gear and X specific monsters, and then in Nightmare, the loot's going to get better. There's only going to be stuff you find in Nightmare, and then the monsters going to get better. Same with Hell. And then the only difference in Inferno is that it's just the best of the best because you're already at max level.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but I think what he meant was that if you see another player and they have like early Nightmare gear, you're not going to be able to tell unless you know what gear it is. You can't tell, is that early Nightmare or late Nightmare or late normal. But you should be able to tell, like, this is Inferno. You should be clear that that's not late Hell gear.
That's just gear progression, really. I mean, same thing happened in Diablo 1, but I mean, my point is that all the difficulties scale based on their gear. So Nightmare's gonna have better gear than normals, and so on. And just that it's not really a unique feature of Inferno having Inferno only gear because there's going to be Hell only gear also, technically, I guess. Well, I don't know. I guess you can't really call it Hell only because I suppose that it could also drop in Inferno, and the only reason why there's Inferno only gear is because there's nothing after Inferno.
Else. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, my point is that the higher end gear will drop as you progress through the game. That's just gonna happen.
Now, I wonder if this is making any amendments to their initial plans of the 18 tiers of gear. Now that are they spreading now that because what were we sitting at prior? It was 18 tiers, and wasn't it like what was it like? It's like six in normal. No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was exactly evenly distributed, but
like
I think
6, 4?
Yeah, it was like that. That was the progression. I wonder if they're spreading it out or if they're adding additional tiers. If this isn't something you know about, I'm sure you can look back on the Diablo fan website, or there should be a video as well on my YouTube channel, basically about item tiers. They initially planned 18 tiers, and they were going to be spread out throughout all three. What was once 3 difficulties, which is now 4 difficulties. Are they adding more tiers now, or are we spreading out those 18 even further?
We should also clarify that the tiers are just the models. It's not like tiered gear, but there's 18 levels of design visual tiers.
Yeah, yeah. So a tier one gear will look the same for a barbarian, a tier 1 helm, but it can have there can be stats all over the place, basically.
Yeah. Right.
So, but yeah, I really feel like they're going to stick with these 18 through the 3, and then they're adding more for Inferno. I could be wrong, though. They could be spreading it out, but I guess that's something that we should try to get clarified or try to get a response from Bashy at some point.
Well, I imagine Inferno should realistically only have like 1 or 2 tiers in any case.
Yeah.
Since it's supposed to be even, I mean, any gear piece should be able to drop anywhere.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But I mean, I guess they haven't really commented on this yet. Shouldn't it theoretically be possible to get the best of the best gear drops at the end of Hell, which would mean that it would be that tier dropping in Inferno?
Well,
you mean
go ahead. I wasn't going to really say anything.
No, I mean, well, Jay Wilson specifically said that you can't get the Inferno gear out, in Hell. I mean, there'll be some drop in, but the best stuff, I mean, like the best Inferno gear is limited to Inferno, so people know you've been there.
That's true. I don't know. I mean, assuming that they weren't going to have Inferno to begin with, maybe they just moved that last tier from the end of Hell to Inferno. I guess I don't really know. I'm just speculating. I guess
if they didn't have Inferno from the beginning, then they didn't have this idea of a very extravagant armor either. So it seems like if they came up with Inferno like 2 months ago, then they must also said, okay, we need much better gear for this. And then
I'm saying maybe that gear is what we would have originally found at the end of Hell.
It's possible. I mean, that's something we can't really know. We could ask.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's interesting. Do you have any reason to think that it couldn't possibly be that Frozen, that they couldn't have just pushed that gear back into Inferno?
Well, I'm just thinking if you have, I mean, since they try to establish that the Inferno gear is going to be so special, I mean, if they had like four Hell tiers before, and they were kind of murky, I mean, I assume it wasn't that clear of a difference between late Hell and early Hell. It was kind of similar. They would have needed some new art to really push the Inferno gear, over the top, so you could clearly differentiate it from the Hell gear.
Yeah,
well, I think the biggest thing that I've seen in the screenshots is just the coloring of the gear. That's really distinct, and there's just a little bit more of everything. I don't think that it's too far fetched to think that they could just change the color palette for what was supposed to be the 18th tier of Hell could now be the final tier in Inferno.
Yeah, and I mean, and don't forget, the whole point is to so you can say, wow, this person farmed that gear in Inferno. The only difference is I would have said, wow, that person farmed that gear from Hell Diablo.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the only difference.
Yeah, but that's pretty interesting. That's something that we should try to get an answer to. I would say a lot of people would say that it would make a big deal, and people may probably be upset if they think that they just took what was originally 18 tiers through 3 difficulties and just stretched them out amongst the 4 difficulties. So I'm hoping that they've added a couple more things. I mean, I guess the biggest thing really is just artwork. It's not that difficult to, throw a piece of gear in that has this variation of randomized stats, et cetera, et cetera. It's just about finding an artist to make something that looks badass. getting a few more pieces of that for each of the character classes. So.
I don't know if you give game balancing enough credit here for us.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, you just take this amount of stat distribution and you just add like 10 more total to it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
There you go. You've got another tier. You know what I mean?
Hey,
but anyways.
Wait. Before we wrap this up, I just happen to be trolling the forums, and
okay. Go figure.
Somebody. I only see the title. I guess I haven't really read it yet. It's called The Social Wall: Inferno and Forced Grouping.
Oh, yeah.
This is something that I hadn't thought of. I wonder if are we going to be able to solo Inferno?
I think it's been stated you should be able to. It might be difficult.
Well, no, we're supposed to be able to solo the entire game. I mean, I guess.
Is Inferno included in the game?
Personally, I feel like Inferno is included in the game, not the end game, but whatever.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you'll be able to solo Inferno. And wait. No, that wasn't Bad Shark Post. Never mind. I mean, it feels like... I mean, it will probably be harder since you're only one person and the monsters will be more aggressive and you won't have anybody to kind of rely on. But I don't think Blizzard wants to... forcefully shut people out of Inferno. I mean, they'll probably say, you should co-op. It'll be greater if you play with more people. But I don't think they'll forcibly say, unless you have like the best gear, you can't do this.
Well, I mean, I'm also gonna say I'm gonna play a little devil's advocate here. I'm also gonna say that I don't think that that's an impossible thought, especially given the fact that we're forced to be online now. There's really no reason why you can't, except for personal preference and not enjoying playing with other people because half of them are probably idiots and they're gonna get you killed anyways. But besides that, the option is always going to be there for anyone who plays Diablo 3 to have someone else jump into the game with them. And since there's no griefing necessarily in this game, player collision isn't a problem in the single player mode, so you don't have to worry about getting blocked off, and there's no PKing at all, so no griefing is pretty much removed. Even if you're with someone stupid, that doesn't necessarily hurt you. Actually, I guess it's also going to depend on if there's any modifiers for the number of players in the game, which there isn't, actually, right? There's no modifiers.
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah.
What do you mean by modifiers?
Oh,
well,
right.
Diablo
Monsters
3
won't scale with number of players.
I'm pretty sure
Yes,
that
they will.
Oh, they are?
No.
Okay.
Of course. I mean, no. If you have 4 people unleashing, 4 attacks at the same time, and the monster has the same HP as if one player is doing it, 4 people would just steamroll through the whole game.
Right, which is what they were saying. You're going to kill stuff faster, which is why they're not scaling drops.
Wait, no,
Yeah, but no. The monster scale based on players. That just has to be. That just has to be how it works.
I think Frozen is right. I think they did say that, but they just said the drops aren't scaling. I'm pretty positive.
Drops don't scale. I don't think. I mean,
yeah.
you might be killing things faster, and so you get
Right, which is why they weren't scaling drops, because you could potentially have more chance of getting better items because there will be more drops.
Yeah. So, wow, okay. Well, that's interesting. I mean, I really don't think that they will be forcing grouping. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't think it's going to happen. I definitely think it will be, physically possible, however long it could take to actually clear Inferno as an individual. I think it'll be a possibility, but it's, again, one of those things that we just don't know, and we actually won't even know during the beta. We're not going to know that till release because beta is going to be so lacking in content. All right, well, that's those are really the biggest things from Gamescom. There wasn't too much else. There was the artwork that was there.
That was sweet.
Yeah, there was it was Rudolph Plotz, and they basically did some kind of 3D looking artwork. If you stand at a certain angle, it actually looks like Diablo is coming up out of the ground, or was it Diablo? Who was that?
I don't know.
I don't know. I have no idea what that is.
I'm just going to point out that Diablo had 4 arms and looked a hell of a lot like Mephisto/Diablo.
Don't encourage Cyber. He isn't even here.
Some people have been complaining. It's funny the things people decide to complain about, but some people have been complaining that Diablo in that artwork looked a little frail. I mentioned earlier talking to you guys that maybe he just hasn't eaten anything in a while. Or he's gone on a diet. Who knows? There's all sorts of possibilities. I mean, that is Diablo, though. That's most certain. That's him. That's his face from all the artwork that we've seen. And he's just a little teeny. That's all.
A little lore tidbit here. I mean, I think you all know Cyber's proposed theory that Diablo is going to possess Leia because he's possessing a female. He has a more feminine body.
Actually, that's kind of clever.
Yeah, I know it's kind of clever. I mean, from a story perspective, I guess I have. Or from a story, not as in a lore, but as a story perspective, I don't have a problem with it. But I just don't dig the whole possess humans thing anymore. Can't we just skip the possessing humans now? I mean, we're done with that. We possessed in Diablo 1, we possessed in Diablo 2. Now we should just be like regular Diablo,
be your own demon. Don't go possessing people. Just be your own demon. pretty cool stuff.
That's the name of the podcast.
Yeah, be your own demon. All right. So lastly, the last really kind of news topic here is going to be the writing contest. This is going to be the 2011 Blizzard Global Writing Contest. It's taking place right now. Do we have an end date for it? It looks like September the 18th is the end date.
Yep.
And what they're looking for is short.
Can you
go ahead?
You said September 18th, but it says October 15th on the Blizzard page.
Does it?
Yeah, it does.
Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. October what?
October 15th.
Let's see.
So I guess it's October 15th.
Submissions are... Tyler says submissions are due the 18th of September. Let's check the FAQ.
What does he know anyways? Well, while he's checking that, what they're looking for are short stories. It's going to be 2,500 to 7,500 words in length, and you can cover any of their franchises. And basically, this is going to be submitted to them, whatever the submit date is. Kevin's checking that out. And it's a contest, as stated. It's a global writing contest.
Maybe it changed. I don't know, because, I don't know where Tyler got that date. Contest period. Contest shall commence August 15th. And shall continue in the duration until October 15th.
All right, well, there you go. So
Yep.
you have until the 15th. Now, grand prize is going to win a trip to Blizzard headquarters, at which point you're actually going to be meeting up with some of the Blizzard writing staff. You'll receive the Doom Hammer by Epic Weapons. I don't even know what that is. What's the Doom Hammer? Is that it's a hammer.
Nice. It's a real-life replica of the Doom Hammer.
That is badass. I hope it's weighted properly as well. That'd be amazing. In addition to that, you'll be receiving the StarCraft archive, the Diablo and Warcraft archives, and as well. So this is basically going to be the book series.
And will be signed by Metzen and the creative development team also.
Yeah, and that's the grand prize. The biggest, obviously, draw to that is being able to go to Blizzard headquarters and meet up with the staff. And then there's going to be 7 runners-up, and they're also going to receive the books. They won't get that trip to Blizzard HQ, however. So pretty cool. If you are a talented writer, go ahead and send in your submission, and you may very well win. All right, so that does it. Why don't we go ahead and jump now into the poll of the week?
Just a quick note.
Both
2009 and 2010, Warcraft fanfiction won. So we need to get some Diablo fanfiction in this year. It's our time.
Frozen, why don't you write something for that?
Do it.
Why don't you write about Diablo?
Diablo, the death of Diablo. Maybe I will.
Too funny. All right, well, let's go ahead and then now, finally, no more interruptions, hop into this week's poll. All right, so for last week's poll, we asked you guys what type of Diablo gear were you looking to get. There was some reveal of some upcoming Diablo gear. There was the Barbarian Belt, the Mistress of Pain socks, the Demon Hunter coat, and the Tyrael hoodie. And it looks like the hoodie did prevail, coming out with 60% of the votes. I'm very disappointed that you guys didn't all pick the Barbarian Belt. That is clearly the most badass, but you can be little fairy angels if you want.
Mighty angels.
Tyrael is the man. I'm not gonna doubt that. But come on, Barbarian. You guys are killing me. All right, so Kevin, why don't you go ahead and give them this week's poll? Oh, I think you're muted, Kevin.
Hello?
Oh, dang. I hit it twice. So, I unmuted and then muted again. That was dumb. All right, anyway. So, this week's poll, we want to know what kind of endgame you guys would like to see, assuming you don't think Inferno is the endgame. No, because, that's an option too, so whatever. So, Dennis actually just brought this up while we were talking about the poll. An infinite dungeon. So, basically something like... not really Torchlight, because the entire game is just a dungeon, but... something like a timed dungeon, and you just run through it, and then whatever you can get the best time is, and we can set up some kind of achievement system for that, which I think is an awesome idea. The next option is Horde mode, which we've all been talking about in kind of a PvP arena sense, but it would definitely be something awesome to do. Pandemonium events, for example, Diablo Clone and Uber Tristram from Diablo 2, so something along those lines, unique boss battle sort of thing. Unicorn level, which everybody wants, and I'm assuming everybody's going to vote for, so I guess we'll have to wait and see how that goes. And then the last option will be you think that Inferno's good enough for the Diablo 3 endgame and you don't need anything else. And then I guess technically there's one more option that's other. If you have a different idea, feel free to vote for other and then post your idea in the comments.
The last option is actually Molten Core for...
Yes,
that will be.
The funny thing is, I had that originally.
That will be Diablo 3's endgame. All right, so to go ahead and vote for this week's poll, head on over to DiabloFans.com, log into your account, and you will be able to vote. And then lastly, we will be moving into some of the user questions. We'll be pulling this from the Facebook fan page every week, basically before we start the podcast early in the day. We ask you guys for some questions, and let's get some of those answered. So the first question here that I will be taking is from Alexander, and Alexander asks, do you think that difficulties before Inferno will be deserted, something similar to low-level zones of World of Warcraft, hard to find people to play with? Well, certainly, later down the road, after the game's been out, 6 months to a year, many people will have fully maxed characters, and as such, they'll be playing through Inferno, or whatever other endgame we eventually end up seeing throughout patches and whatever. With that said, people love alts, and we will be seeing alternate characters. Maybe a little less frequent in Diablo, and that's actually a concern by some people, given the fact that there are no, skill points. People are saying there's less of a reason to have alts now, but Respecs made that just as true as well, in my personal opinion. But either way, I don't think it'll be impossible to find people to play with, and I think people will want to level alternate characters just for fun, and also keep in mind that there's the two different modes, there's hardcore and softcore, so you could also have that option to play with people in the lower levels as well. If even if if I have a softcore barbarian, that doesn't mean I'm not going to make a hardcore one as well. So it's just lots of options for people to be playing through the game, even though the game's been out for a while. Let me just take one more look. I believe that there's a good second question over here. I'll just take this one. This is a kind of a fun question. Kyle asks, what part of Diablo 3 are you guys most excited about? In all honesty, with the recent announcement, I'm going to have to say Inferno. I am really excited to see how difficult that's going to be. So definitely looking forward to that. All right, why don't we go to you next, Frozen? Do you have any questions that you would like answered here?
Yes, we have one from Aaron, who asks, do you think the story of Diablo will end after this? And expansions on D3 don't count. But do you think any games pertaining to this universe will happen afterwards, like World of Warcraft or Diablo 4? And Blizzard has said in the past that Diablo 3 is the end of this story arc that began in Diablo 1 and now ends in Diablo 3, with the brothers being banished to Sanctuary and the Wanderer and the World Stone and all of this. So this current conflict with the three primevals will end with Diablo 3. And what that actually means is a bit unclear. A lot of people think it means the primevals will die. Some people think it means they'll come back in some other form. It's not really clear. But Blizzard, or Jay Wilson at least, has said that they want to expand on the universe after Diablo 3 in some ways. Just not going to be the same story arc.
World of DiabloCraft is coming.
World of Sanctuary, there you go.
Coming. It's coming eventually. All right, and how about you, Kevin? Any questions on your end?
I actually saw a couple on expansions as well from Jesus and Maiko, although I guess his is asking about scythe-wielding class. I guess he's asking if there's going to be a scythe-wielding class in an expansion, which I guess we don't really know, although I don't really see any reason to. Although I guess it would be kind of cool, like Grim Reaper.
A whirling dervish is what we need.
Well, I mean, the Necromancer was kind of he was supposed to be a scythe guy. I mean, but there were no good skills or no good scythes. I mean, they were in the game, but they kind of sucked. But it would have been really cool to have like a character with that could actually be built around a scythe. I'd like that.
I wanted to comment on the possibility of expansions because, I mean, obviously the first game hasn't come out yet, but I've seen some people saying, well, how can we have expansions if Inferno is going to be already higher than our level? At that point, Inferno is going to be lower than us, because, I mean, assuming they increase the level cap. And, I mean, my response to that was, hey, let's just add another difficulty. We can call it Supernova and make them level 71. 71 levels, or 71 monsters, and make level cap 70. Boom. It's fixed. Now you don't have to worry about scaling anything else. It's just nice and simple. I just had to throw that out there, too.
Thanks.
Supernova.
All right, I actually have a legit question here. Ward wants to know how the reviving system works. If it's still implemented, is it instant, or does it work like the Stone of Recall? Actually, and I guess you're going to have to help me answer this, Dennis. So basically, once you die, the screen kind of turns red. You get a 10% durability loss, and then a tombstone appears on your screen. A couple seconds... It's a couple seconds until you can potentially be revived in the battlefield, or potentially be revived at your last checkpoint, or you can be revived from a teammate right away. But is there a casting time on that, or is it just you right click on my tombstone and I'm alive?
Yeah, there was a short channel time from what I recall. And it wasn't very long, though. It was very, very short, especially given the fact that, being in the heat of combat, you don't want it to be very long. I don't even know if it was a full second or half a second or something. But from what I remember, there was a short channel time to it. Either way, even if let's just pretend that my memory fails me and there wasn't, and it was instant. It's just a matter of right-clicking on the person and they're pretty much up. If it's not instant, then it's only like a second or half a second, so it doesn't take very long for them to get right up. But it's pretty cool. I like that, keeping your friends in combat. That's why we play the game, to play with our friends. I guess not everybody does that, actually. So
I do.
I'm wrong. All right. Well, I think that pretty much does it for user questions, and as such,
I have one more. If we could
Frozen.
Add it. Of course.
Go ahead.
CJ Locke asks, have you all started a betting pool about D3's release date? When do you all think the game will be coming out, and do you all agree about a date? And we actually do kind of have an unofficial betting pool, or at least between me, Sixen, Magistrate, and Cyber. And I think I'm in the 2011 bag. We did this like 2009. We started it. I betted on 2011, and Cyber betted on 2011, and Sixen and Magistrate are in 2012, if I remember right.
Yeah, I was like dead set on having a beta not start until first quarter 2012. I guess I was close.
It's still not impossible, but
yeah, I guess that's true.
All right, guys. Well, pretty awesome stuff. I definitely enjoyed doing this podcast. Hopefully, it was a good listen for you all. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been Dennis for Kevin and for Frozen, and we will see you guys next time.
Take it easy, everybody.
Bye.